Secretary Arkoosh, thank you for being here today. We know that your department is not only the most expensive part of our state budget, but also the fastest growing department on the expense side of the ledger. So let's dig in. Earlier in your opening statement, you referenced medical assistance currently covering GLP-1 medications that are used to treat diabetes as well as obesity. Can you speak to how much DHS has spent on GLP-1s?
Well, I can tell you that, actually, let me just back up one step. So these medicines are relatively new.
And we understand that. We understand that. Just if you could tell us what the Commonwealth is spending on GLP-1s.
In the budget for next year, for 2025, remember, and let me also just remind everybody, because this gets confusing, our MCO contracts are on the calendar year, not the state fiscal year. So this always causes some confusion. So in the 2025 year, we have $1.3 billion for GLP-1s.
Excuse me, did you say 1.3 million or billion dollars?
Billion with a B.
$1.3 billion for GLP-1s. So are there any pre-authorizations required for someone to have their GLP-1 covered by Medicaid?
There are. So doctors can prescribe GLP-1s for diabetes or obesity, and in both cases there are prior authorizations. The Medicaid program uses a drug utilization review board. All MCOs have representation on those boards. It's mostly pharmacists and things like that. They approve and agree to a set of prior authorizations, which they have done for the current prior authorization that we're under. In April, we have the next Drug Utilization Board meeting, and we are going to present a new set of much more robust prior authorizations for them to consider and hopefully approve. And we're doing that for the use of this drug for obesity. The use of GLP-1s for diabetes has been shown to reduce healthcare spending for individuals with diabetes. I think it would be very short-sighted to take that away. But what we are going to do is dramatically reduce
or disagree with that. I apologize.
Obesity.
You know, we have seen estimates that we have spent almost $300 million on these drugs. Roughly $106 per Medicaid beneficiary. One paper that we saw indicated that we are second only to California in the amount that we are spending, and now it appears, based on what you're shared here today, we'll be spending $1.3 billion next year on those drugs for diabetes and obesity. So in the governor's executive budget, there's a statement that this budget seeks to contain spending on GLP-1s. You've talked about increasing prior authorization, putting different requirements on there. What changes are the department making that will reduce the Commonwealth's GLP-1 spending?
Yeah, again, for obesity. I do want to be really clear about that. So what will be presented at the Drug Utilization Review Board in April is a series of prior authorizations that would include things like requirements to have tried diet and exercise programs, to have tried lesser expensive medications. You know, there's many options in this area, and probably most significantly would be to only allow their use for obesity with an extremely high body mass index, which is the typical measure of obesity.
How much savings has been assumed in the budget should these measures be approved?
We haven't estimated a specific amount, but we have adjusted our out-year projections to account for reductions. So there's not a specific amount that you're going to be able to point to that says, here's the savings. It really will depend on the prior authorization.
Projections, what are you anticipating should these approvals go through?
So we've shown in our capitation out-year projections roughly 2% growth year over year.
Okay. Will these changes require anything from a regulatory or legislative approval perspective to allow for implementation?
It won't require anything from the legislative perspective. I think we will have to notify CMS if we're changing the way in which we're prior authorizing these medications. But those things are typically a fairly routine process.
Very good. So my understanding is that you're going to constrain the large amount, the 1.3 billion that we're spending, but there's actually no savings in the out years, just less growth in the budget.
Our Medicaid budget always grows year over year. And we've been very, very proud of the fact that that growth has been very low compared to
Specifically
national
to
averages.
the GLP-1s.
So the way to think about it is that if we did not take these steps, the growth in the out years would be higher. The growth is not going to be negative in the Medicaid program because healthcare spending does not ever get cheaper over the years.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.